Good morning, everybody. So I'm back again and ready for a little bit of empowerment and encouragement today. We're going to talk about embracing our mistakes. One of the things that I myself have noticed is that there are times and moments where I get these reoccurring thoughts of choices that I've made in my past, things that I'm currently dealing with or still affected by as a result of decisions from my past. And it makes it kind of hard to deal with your day, and sometimes you regress emotionally or mentally to these things. And I wanted to talk a little bit about that today. So I personally made a mistake years ago, and it weighs on me today. So I constantly, in my encounters, I think about it. In my conversations, I talk about it. And what I realized was my pastor had spoken a little over a week ago, and he said that you don't need to look at what left you. You need to look at what was left with you. And it was really profound because as a result of a previous experience, although there was hurt left, although there were remnants, of pieces left that impacted my personality, that impacted my encounters and conversations with people, we give a little too much power to the issue itself and not enough power to what the issue gave us and left us with. As a result of that incident, I was left more confident. I was left more open-minded. I was left more empowered and more enlightened on certain things. I've been able to judge myself and base myself based off of who I am and who I desire to be, as opposed to people's perception of me. One of the hardest things for me was going through a divorce. During the time that I was going through that divorce, I allowed myself to be gauged by what the world and what my environment would say. What would I look like a single mother? What would I look like divorced? What are they going to think about what happened in my marriage? Why it ended? All of these thoughts were in my head. Although I knew that I was making the best decision for me and my children, these thoughts were in my head. And looking back now and putting things into perspective, I want to enlighten you and empower you on the concept of allowing society and allowing your environment to gauge how long you should grieve, to gauge how you should cope, to gauge what you should do in that time. We as people, we develop and we grow based off of these incidents. Regardless to what it is, there are a lot of single mothers, we sit back and we think, oh my God, I wish I would have made a better choice. Or, a lot of people that end up in situations where, oh my God, I purchased this house and I want to move out of town. Just big and small things, business ventures. I wish I wouldn't have invested this much money. I wish I would have done this sooner. I wish I would have waited a couple years. A lot of these decisions we make, and we think about these things and we sit back and we regret them. However, what we want to do first is to make sure that we are not gauging these decisions based off of someone else's timeline. The worst thing you could do is time yourself based off of what society says is a perfect timeline to get married, or what your friends say is a good time and a good age to have a baby. Those things we have to gauge ourselves on. Don't let society have that much of an influence on you that you cause yourself to internalize those things. You cause yourself to be depressed or down or hard on yourself about it. You know you best. Who best to make a decision for you, your future, or your current position than you? Understandable. We take on a lot of these opinions from people from the outside, and it's okay to do that. But what we want to do is we want to subcategorize those things. We want to categorize that as something that I can use now, or maybe something I'll use down the road, or something I can't use at all. We don't want to gauge ourselves based off of someone else, because people heal differently, they grow differently, and you thrive differently. How many of you have been in a household or are in a household where you are one of 7 siblings or one of 3 siblings, and although you've been raised by the same 2 parents in the same environment, you all have different perspectives on what mama taught or what daddy did, or your perception of a man, or your perception of a woman, a grandmother, father, all those things. That shows you within itself that you cannot gauge yourself, how you heal, how you think, how you change, and how you evolve based on someone else. We all perceive things very differently, and with those perceptions, that's how we build that. That's the schema building of life. So going back a little bit, when I went through my divorce, you know, one of the things that I had to do was I really had to sit down and decide what was best for me and my children. And unfortunately, that was a divorce. But when I went into that relationship, that marriage, I was naive. I'll be real. I'll be transparent. I don't mind. I was naive. I was naive to the possibilities of some of the things out here in this world. I was naive to people and how they could hurt you. I was naive to how I could really build. Because one of the things that I had an issue with as a child was I was afraid to grow up. I was afraid to be an adult, and I was afraid to fail. But look at me now. I don't have to display and exhort all of those things that I've accomplished, but that fear, that gauge that you have, it can stop you from doing a lot of things. At the time, I wanted to be married. My friends were in school. I wanted kids. They wanted businesses, which is all fine. But I gauged myself based off what other people thought was a great timeline, what other people thought should be happening in that time. And because of that, I stood stagnant for a few years. I stood stagnant because I felt like I wasn't doing enough. I wasn't doing what was right. I wasn't doing what everyone else expected of me. But despite what they did, once I got that confidence, once I came out of that naiveness, once I became me, I became comfortable in who I was, in the timeline that I planned, and what I wanted for my life and my children's lives, I was okay. And it was okay to move on. So I want you to embrace those mistakes that you've made. Remember what caused you to make those mistakes. Where were you mentally? Where were you emotionally? Now, as a result, coming out of it, what can you learn from it? Don't look at it as a mistake that was made. Look at it as a learning experience. What can you take away from that so that you don't end up in that same position? How can you use it to thrive? How can you use it to build on? Don't down yourself, and don't allow the world to gauge you and to tell you what you should be doing and when you should be doing it. Take your time and live. Learn how to love you. I hope this has been helpful to you guys. I know I've been helping myself throughout this entire process, and prior to this, I just wanted to share a little bit, shed a little light on some things, and I will talk to you all soon. Have a good day.